It seems there are more fires, floods, and natural disasters than ever before. Are you prepared? We delve into home insurance and what's right for you. Then, if thinking of selling your home, we have the top tips for attaining the top dollar. And would you like to benefit from rising real estate prices without being a landlord? Discover how. All this and more right now on The Wealthy Life. Do you think it's important to have earthquake insurance?
I think so. I think it's worth it.
Here, yes. In BC, yeah.
Yes, I would say if I owned a home that I would like to be insured for an earthquake.
I think that that's a loaded question because our federal government is fairly good in Canada for disaster.
I haven't really thought about earthquake insurance. I don't have it. It's probably important, but I don't have it.
The bulk of your wealth is likely in your home. Are you covered in the event of a disaster? Today's guests are Laura Bolster and Jay Tuson, home insurance specialists. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jay, how did you get into the insurance business?
Well, it's a funny story. My dad was in the insurance business. He had a small agency, and I was in a government program, being in Victoria, and he talked me out of it. So I made the change because everybody wants to be an insurance broker, right? So
I dream of it when I grow up.
So I went into it, and the first bit of news he gave me was, I'm really happy you're working with me, Jay, but I'm not going to be able to afford to pay you. So I worked for 8 years, basically on straight commission, just doing sales. So that was my entrance into the insurance world. But we don't find too many people that actually pick insurance.
No, but it obviously worked out well for you. You didn't get scared and run away.
No, it worked out well. I thank my dad all the time now. He's retired, obviously, but it's been a great career because insurance, it grows all over, right? HR, IT, there's so many different areas of insurance, so it's been a fun ride.
And there's a lot to learn, and most people don't realize that you're not selling widgets here. You're protecting people from disaster, and financial ruin is really what you're doing.
Absolutely, and you're protecting their #1 asset for most people.
Laura, what do you love best about working in the industry?
I'd have to say it's the people. I think it's from the staff, helping the staff, providing them opportunities, and then also helping our clients.
Great. So what do you think clients need to know the most? What are the biggest things they need to ask before buying home insurance?
I would go back and even before you actually buy the home, right? I mean, you need to know certain things like, are there buried oil tanks? What is the electrical like? The plumbing? There's all of these sort of underwriting questions that we get asked when we're brokering the business. But I would say that probably one of the most important things is to make sure that you have an educated broker that knows the markets, that can shop for you, basically, because the product these days, Sybil, is getting so complicated. It's difficult for us to stay on top of the changes. We deal with several different insurance companies. They're all changing products. They're all competing against each other.
Yes.
They're trying to earn your business, and it makes it more difficult, particularly for the consumer.
And there's so many things to ask. What is the deductible? What kind of coverage is included or not included? Let's actually touch on that for a minute. A standard home insurance policy includes certain things, but there's a lot of things that you have to pay extra for. What are some of the extras, Laura?
Well, nowadays, most policies are an all risks policy, which means almost everything is covered except what's excluded. So you really have to mainly focus on what's excluded. And things like earthquake are generally excluded to begin with, and some of the water coverage can be excluded. So then you have to understand what those coverages are and decide if you want to purchase them. But the majority of policies, yeah, that is significant. So it's really important to know what options are available, what they cost, and if you have an exposure to those options so that you can choose those coverages as well.
Now, what about things like high-end bicycles or jewelry and cash? I mean, I'm assuming the average policy doesn't include an unlimited dollar amount of those items, or does it?
Well, it's a bit complicated because it will for certain perils. So for example, fire, if your house burnt down, but it will limit it for things like cash because, you know, the insurance company isn't going to let you say, hey, I just had $25,000 cash stolen out of my dresser.
Right.
So they'll limit those kind of things, and they'll limit bikes, jewelry,
Business property. If you run a business from your home, that's really important that we know about that. If you have tenants living in your basement, if you have a suite, if you have roommates or boarders that live with you, all those things, like, it's really important that we know that, because if you don't tell your broker, then there could be a problem when you have a claim.
Well, and nobody wants problems when they have a claim. Jay, what is the big question Canadians should be asking?
I would say the question should be, do I have the right insurance?
And that would be an important answer to know. So don't go away. Find out if your home insurance has you covered after the break.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. We're here with Laura and Jay to find out how to ensure you have the right home insurance coverage. We talked about some of the disasters that people face. Well, I guess maybe not disasters, but they don't know they don't have enough coverage until it's too late. Basically, you want to get the cheapest insurance you can, you want to protect your home, but nothing's ever going to go wrong, so you just want to keep your costs down. What are some of the common things that people overlook when buying home insurance?
Well, probably earthquake would be a big one because it's not included. Laura mentioned earlier a business in your home. You know, we have clients that will have business contents in their home. There's a limited amount, but once it leaves the home, there's no coverage at all. So,
and even loss of income, I would assume. If you're running a business or if you've got a renter in your home, should you be buying that extra coverage to make sure that the income is coming in?
Yeah, for sure. And some policies will include it for the renter, but they wouldn't for your home business.
Let's talk about renters for a second.
Yeah.
Who is paying for the rental insurance? Like, is it the landlord covers it? Does the renter need to buy their own? Is it both?
Well, that's a good question. I think that it's misunderstood out there, but if you are a tenant and you are renting, you have to buy your own insurance. And your tenant's insurance covers your belongings, and I think a lot of tenants don't think their belongings are worth anything, so they don't bother buying tenant's insurance. But what they don't realize is that with that tenant policy, you also get liability insurance and you get additional living expenses. So if there is a claim and it's your fault and you are sued, you have liability insurance. And also if your building burns down, you have to live somewhere else temporarily, it'll pay for your additional cost to live somewhere else.
I can just picture a student scenario. You're a student, you're renting a place, you think your stuff's not worth anything, and then all of a sudden there's a flood or a fire, whatever the case may be, and your stuff's gone. All of a sudden, when you're a starving student having to buy new sofa, bed, dishes, clothing, books, all of that adds up really fast. Now, from what I understand, tenants insurance actually isn't that expensive.
No,
it's not.
No, it's not. You're probably standard tenants policy, maybe $25 a month.
Oh, so there's really no
like
excuse not to have it.
Yeah, no. And for university students, you should check on your parents' policy, because if you're going to university, there's a lot of home policy that will extend to provide tenants coverage to a student at post-secondary.
Oh, I like that. So you could pass the buck off to mom and dad.
Yeah, like that never happens, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Back to earthquake insurance. That is something people overlook. If they have it or not, is it important? Isn't it? Can you expand on that?
I think depending on where you live in Canada, earthquake could be really important. And I think most banks make you carry earthquake coverage if you live in an earthquake zone. And but what you do need to check is the deductibles. The deductibles can be quite high, and so you have to kind of figure out how you're going to come up with the deductible money should an earthquake occur.
Well, and that's really good planning in advance. How do people get the best deal? Should they shop around? Should they go online? Should they work with a broker? What's the answer?
Well, I think shopping around is great. I mean, we shop for everything, right? We all want to get value in whatever we buy. But I think where people make the mistake is they actually shop the insurance product themselves. And our policies are so complicated these days, it's difficult for us to stay on top of all the coverages. So I do think there's a danger in people going and purchasing their insurance themselves. They won't find out what they really have until they have a claim, and by that point it's too late. I would say shop the capabilities of your broker. check the broker. What is their size? How many markets do they have? How many products are they going to be able to bring to you? What's their expertise? How are they going to respond in the event of a claim?
And you want someone to ask you the questions about what coverage you really need. There's a whole list of questions that you should ask. Contact us at thewealthylife.com and we'll send you a checklist to do a home inventory to make sure you're prepared when buying your home insurance. Jay, Laura, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Stay tuned. Up next, we'll learn how to get top dollar when selling your home.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Thinking of selling your home? Learn how to get top dollar. With us today is Marilyn Ball, a realtor with an interesting background. Marilyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sybil.
Tell me a bit about this interesting background. How did you get interested in real estate?
So I come from an art background where I have a BFA in drawing and painting.
Wow.
So creativity has been my life. And I've also run a well-established Montessori preschool. So when I thought of those two backgrounds, the best combination would be going and helping other people with their lifestyle choices. It's a perfect fit.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And you're loving it and never looked back, right?
Oh my gosh, it's been amazing. A decade of helping people.
Great.
Yeah.
And I want to get to some of these tips that you have for homeowners so they can get the top dollar for selling their home. Where do they start? What's the first step in making sure you get the best price?
Yeah, so they want to start at the very beginning, right?
Yes.
Right? So looking at the big picture is like a well-crafted, layered story.
Okay.
And the first layer is the preparation. There's a practical part to that where it'd be like spring cleaning. They need to be looking at cleaning their eaves all the way down to power washing their driveway and doing all those things on a to-do list that they've meant to do for years, going into the cupboards, editing.
Now that's not always fun.
No, it's hard work, but the payoff is huge.
How huge can the payoff be from doing some of these things?
So it's tens of thousands to, depending on the market, $100,000 difference. And if they can then move on to staging,
yes,
it doesn't have to be a huge expense, but it has to be where they feel like everything is ready to go, like planning a very lovely dinner party. They are putting out fresh flowers, they are lighting the candles. It's as if they're having their very best guests come into the home.
Do you ever have music playing in the background? Or do people bake cookies or bread? Is that something that's still popular?
Well, not so much the baking, perhaps, but certainly the music. And it depends on the personality of the home and the angle that you want to present.
Right. So it's
Right?
you've got to think of your target market and what is it you're trying to portray.
Right.
When it comes to staging, how do people do that? Do they do it themselves? Do they go through their realtor? Do they hire a third person?
A good realtor will be having almost a Mary Poppins bag of experts to help them. So yes, they will be recommending good staging if necessary. They will also initially have a great eye themselves and be able to make recommendations.
And clear out the clutter, right? Because you don't
Absolutely.
want boxes, empty boxes of things, and when you open the cupboard, things are jumping out at you.
Yeah.
But people do that still,
Oh my
don't they? Like, do
gosh.
they not care, or?
It amazes me to see. It's like if you were going to sell your car, you would definitely be detailing it. This is the same for a home. Now,
How about repair work? What type of repair work should people do versus not? I'm just trying to get an idea of how much money should you spend. Do you go as far as renovate your kitchen and bathroom, or do you just keep it minimal and just touch up?
you know, really it depends on the market niche that home is in. Is it a luxury home? What are the expectations for that home? Now, again, an expert agent is going to be able to make the recommendations that are going to help sell the house for top dollar. What we should recommend is that you get a pre-inspection.
Okay, why
so
is
that
that
there
important?
are no surprises in the end.
Because usually that comes out when people put an offer in subject to inspection. And if you have something that comes up then that you need to repair, that's unplanned for. Yeah, I could see that not being a good thing.
Well, right, and then you may also be losing much more money in the heat of the moment than if you'd been able to tweak whatever the inspector recommended. Another good tip is to get a pre-appraisal. And if that pre-appraisal comes in the vendor's favor, it's another tool at their disposal for great negotiation.
Now, what happens if the appraisal comes in not very good? Do you just keep that to yourself?
Absolutely.
But if it comes out quite nice, then you can share it and you have some substance to why you're asking what you're asking.
Well, true. And not all appraisers are considered equal either. There's also the market.
Yes.
And it's a living, a breathing thing, the market.
And an appraisal is just an appraisal. Now, you've done all the work, so sellers have put in the elbow grease, they've touched up paint, they've cleaned their cupboards, they've staged their home, they're ready to go. When it comes time to promoting it, does professional photography make a difference? And is that something that they usually pay for, or does a realtor cover?
Yes, a good agent is going to be willing to get you a high-end photographer. None of these iPhone snaps, please. You know, we don't need to have extraneous stuff in the photo, and a good photographer is going to be able to see the whole picture and not see that sock lying on the bed.
Or the wrinkled sheets or the dark dingy corners, and the lighting makes a big difference. I know when we were looking for property in the past and we go through the MLS listings, I look at the pictures, and sometimes it's really hard to see past bad photography. It doesn't tell the story. It doesn't present the house well.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, when they're buying, it's stressful for them too, or it can be, and they don't want to think of all the work they have to do. So you want to present it really well. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, you want to be selling the best version of that house. You know, it's as if you were going on a date. Well, you would be presenting yourself in the very best light.
Do people ever change their mind at the end? They get their house all done up and then they decide not to sell?
Oh my gosh, there are times that they look at everything and go, oh, I think I will buy it back for myself.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Marilyn. Thank you so much for sharing some of your top tips with us today. And if you want a list of these top tips, contact us at thewealthylife.com. When we return, discover how to own rental property without being a landlord. Welcome back. Thanks for your letters, emails, tweets, and messages. Today's question is from Colton in Nanaimo. Dear Sybil, my sister just started renting the basement suite in her home to help cover mortgage payments. The extra income from the real estate market sounds attractive, but I don't particularly like the responsibilities of being a landlord. I've heard about real estate investment trusts, which would give me exposure to the real estate market without having to be a landlord. Is this a good idea? Is there anything I should be aware of? Many thanks, Colton. Well, Colton, I'm not sure if you are a proud homeowner or not, but many Canadians already have the bulk of their wealth invested in real estate, in the equity in their own home. So it's something to keep in mind when you're looking at adding more real estate to your investment portfolio. Real estate investment trusts, are also known as REITs for short, are a great way, however, to diversify your money in many different types of real estate. You can invest in residential, in commercial, it might be office buildings, it might be shopping malls. And the benefit of diversifying is that you're not putting all your eggs in any one basket. You can also further diversify by geographic location. So when you buy a REIT, your exposure to real estate might be all over the country or all around the world. Now, when it comes to real estate, the key to making money on it is not just the appreciation in value of real estate over time, because that on average only goes up by about inflation over the long run, but it's about getting the rental income. With a REIT, all of that rental income is managed for you. Each investment within the REIT has a property manager that is hired to take care of everything. They're the landlord, so you don't have to do the work. You just get to sit back and collect the dividends. That being said, like with any other investment, there's risk involved. Not all REITs are the same. You want to make sure that you're invested in a diversified portfolio of REITs with different properties, with good management, and that their financial situation is secure. A couple of things that will negatively impact your return are rising interest rates and high vacancy rates. So there's a lot of work and due diligence that you need to do before putting your money into any REIT, but it would free up your time. You wouldn't have to fix any leaky toilets. Check with a financial advisor to find out what REIT might be right for you. And that wraps up this edition of The Wealthy Life, helping Canadians make smart financial decisions. Go to thewealthylife.com to become a member and receive free exclusive access to Wealthy Life workbooks, calculators, articles, and more to make the most out of what you have.